The classroom was enormous. Jiwoo sat at her desk and looked around at the strange faces surrounding her. Some had scales. Others had fur. A few glowed with soft light. She was one of only 5 humans in the entire Stellar Institute, and right now, she felt very alone. The Institute was a massive space station that floated in orbit around Centauri Prime. It was the most important school in the galaxy. Students came from over 200 different planets to study here. Jiwoo had worked hard to earn her place. She studied for years back on Earth in the crowded streets of Seoul. Now she was here, sitting in advanced kinetic combat theory, trying not to stare at her alien classmates. The door slid open with a soft hiss. The instructor walked in and Jiwoo felt her stomach tighten. Belthar was tall, very tall. He looked like a praying mantis from Earth, but much bigger. His body was covered in a green exoskeleton that clicked when he moved. He had 4 arms and large crystalline eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "Welcome to Advanced Kinetic Combat Theory," Belthar said. His voice was sharp and precise. "I have taught this course for 30 cycles. I have trained warriors, diplomats, and peacekeepers. Some of you will succeed. Most of you will not." Jiwoo listened carefully. She kept her hands folded on her desk. Back home, her father had taught her to always watch and listen before speaking. Hyunwoo had been a military officer, and he raised his daughter to be disciplined and aware. Belthar moved between the desks. His forearms gestured as he spoke. Combat theory is the study of movement, force, and reaction across different species. What works for a Calarian like myself will not work for a Drachnor. What works for a Drachnor will not work for a Centauran. He paused. And certainly not for a human. A few students turned to look at Jiwoo. She felt their eyes on her but didn't react. She simply kept watching the instructor. "Humans," Belthar continued, "are new to the galactic community. They joined us only 5 years ago. They come from a planet called Earth, which is classified as a Class 9 Deathworld." He said the word Deathworld like it was a joke. "This classification suggests their planet is dangerous, but I believe this rating is exaggerated." Jiwoo's jaw tightened slightly, but she said nothing. Across the room, she saw Tae-young, another human student, shake his head slowly. He looked frustrated. "Today," Belthar announced, "we will have a practical demonstration. Theory is important, but understanding the reality of physical interaction is crucial." His crystalline eyes scanned the room and stopped on Jiwoo. "You, the human girl, come to the front." Jiwoo stood up. Her chair made a small sound against the floor. She walked to the front of the classroom, her footsteps quiet and measured. She was 17 years old, average height for a human, with dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore the standard institute uniform, which looked plain compared to some of the elaborate clothing other species wore. "What is your name?" Belthar asked. "Jiwoo," she replied calmly. "Jiwoo," he repeated. "I will demonstrate a standard non-lethal strike. This technique is taught throughout the galaxy for self-defense situations. It is designed to discourage an aggressor without causing permanent harm." He moved closer to her. "Stand still." Jiwoo felt a warning bell ring in her mind. Her father's training kicked in. Something was wrong. The instructor hadn't asked for permission. He hadn't explained what he was about to do. But she was a student and he was the teacher. She stood still. Belthar struck her without warning. One of his 4 arms shot forward, faster than most species could see. His closed fist connected with Jiwoo's nose. The impact made a solid, crunching sound that echoed through the silent classroom. Pain exploded across Jiwoo's face. Her eyes watered immediately. She felt warmth on her upper lip and knew she was bleeding. The force of the hit would have knocked most aliens unconscious. It would have broken bones in species from lower gravity worlds. But Jiwoo came from Earth, where gravity was stronger than most civilized planets. Her bones were denser. Her body was built to withstand more. She didn't fall. She didn't step back. She didn't even cry out. Instead, Jiwoo stood there, blood running from her nose and her eyes locked onto Belthar's face. The classroom was completely silent. Other students stared in shock. A small blue alien in the front row made a gasping sound. Tae-young had half risen from his seat, his fists clenched. Belthar seemed surprised. He had expected her to collapse. He had expected tears or retreat. He tilted his head, studying her like she was an interesting specimen. "Remarkable durability," he said, though he sounded more annoyed than impressed. "You see, class? Even a direct strike to a vulnerable area does not—" "Is it my turn now, instructor?" Jiwoo interrupted. Her voice was calm, steady, despite the blood dripping onto her uniform. The classroom went even quieter if that was possible. Several students leaned forward. Belthar's crystalline eyes narrowed. He seemed to realize he had made a mistake, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "Excuse me," he said. Jiwoo wiped the blood from her face with the back of her hand. She didn't break eye contact. "You demonstrated a strike on me. In combat theory, demonstrations usually involve both participants taking turns. Is it my turn now?" Tae-young whispered to Hana, Jiwoo's roommate, who sat next to him. "She's going to do it." "She's actually going to do it." Hana looked worried. "She shouldn't. He's the teacher. This will cause trouble." But Tae-young shook his head. "He hit her first. He broke the rules. Now she's just following the logic of his own lesson." Belthar seemed caught between embarrassment and anger. His forearms flexed. The exoskeleton on his body clicked more loudly. Around the room, students watched with fear and fascination. Some of them had never seen real conflict before. Their worlds were peaceful. Violence was something they studied in theory, not practice. "Fine," Belthar said finally. His pride had won over his common sense. "Do your worst, human. Show the class what your Deathworld taught you." He spread his forearms wide, confident in his reach advantage, his natural armor, and his superior size. He had trained for decades. She was just a girl, just a student, just a human from a planet most of the galaxy barely knew existed. Jiwoo didn't smile. She didn't make any threatening gestures. She simply wiped the last of the blood from her face and took one step forward. Her body language changed. It was subtle, but anyone trained in combat would have noticed. Her weight shifted. Her center of gravity lowered. Her breathing became controlled and rhythmic. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she heard her father's voice from years of training. "Move with purpose. Control your emotion. End the threat efficiently." The blood from her broken nose had stopped flowing, but her face was already starting to swell. It hurt a lot. But pain was just information. It told her she was injured but not defeated. It told her to be careful. It told her that the instructor standing in front of her had hurt her without permission, without warning, and without apology. "Whenever you're ready, instructor," Jiwoo said quietly. 30 seconds. That's all it would take. 30 seconds to change everything. Belthar laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. To him, this was still a demonstration, still a lesson. He thought Jiwoo was being brave or foolish, but he didn't think she was dangerous. That was his first mistake. His second mistake was not understanding what Earth had made humans into. Jiwoo moved. She didn't charge forward like a warrior from the combat vids. She didn't shout or raise her fists. She simply stepped into Belthar's space, closing the distance between them in less than a second. Her movement was quick and smooth like water flowing downhill. Belthar reacted on instinct. Two of his forearms shot out to grab her. He was faster than most species, but Jiwoo had spent years training. Her father had taught her Hapkido, a Korean martial art focused on joint locks and redirecting force. She had practiced thousands of times until the movements became automatic. She deflected his left arm with her forearm, pushing it past her body. At the same time, she stepped inside his guard, getting close enough that his long reach became a disadvantage. Now she was too close for him to strike effectively. Belthar tried to grab her with his other arms, but Jiwoo was already moving. She caught his primary right arm at the wrist and elbow. Her grip was firm, her hands positioned precisely. This was the dangerous part. This was where technique mattered more than strength. The instructor tried to pull away, but Jiwoo moved with him. She turned her body, using her hip as a fulcrum. Her entire body weight, combined with the leverage of the joint lock, created tremendous pressure on Belthar's arm. "Release me," Belthar said. His voice had changed. The confidence was gone. Now there was confusion and the first hint of fear. Jiwoo didn't respond. She was focused on control. Her father's training echoed in her mind. Control the joint, control the body. Control the body, control the fight. Belthar tried to strike her with his free arms, but Jiwoo had positioned herself perfectly. She used his captured arm as a shield, keeping it between herself and his other limbs. Every time he tried to move, she applied more pressure to the joint lock. The other students watched in stunned silence. Tae-young was standing now, his eyes wide. Anna had her hand over her mouth. A large reptilian student in the back had stood up to see better. This wasn't supposed to happen. Students didn't fight teachers. especially not small human students against experienced Kolarian instructors. Velthar was beginning to panic. He could feel the pressure building in his arm joint. His exoskeleton was hard and strong against cutting or piercing attacks, but it did nothing against this kind of force. The pressure was coming from inside, from the way his own body was being twisted against itself. "Stop," he said. "This demonstration is over." But Jiwoo was in a different state of mind now. When her nose broke, something had shifted inside her. Not rage exactly, more like a cold clarity. On Earth, if someone hurt you, you had to respond. You had to show them they couldn't do it again. It was a survival instinct from millions of years of human evolution. She applied more pressure. Not quickly, but steadily. She was giving him time to feel it, to understand what was about to happen. Velthar's breathing became rapid. His crystalline eyes were wide. He tried to use his 3 free arms to pry her hands away, but her grip was locked. Her fingers were like steel cables. This was another thing he didn't understand about humans. Their grip strength was extraordinary compared to most species. It came from ancestors who climbed trees and threw spears and fought with their hands. "I said stop." Velthar's voice was high and sharp now. 20 seconds had passed since Jiwoo first moved. Time seemed to slow down. Every student in the room would remember this moment for the rest of their lives. Jiwoo shifted her weight again. She dropped her center of gravity lower, forcing Velthar off balance. His feet scraped against the floor as he tried to stay upright. His exoskeleton clicked and creaked. The joint in his arm was at its maximum tolerance. Tae-young knew what was about to happen. He had trained with Jiwoo in the human dormitory. He had seen her practice. "She's going to break it," he whispered to Hana. "Can't someone stop this?" Hana asked desperately, but no one moved. The other students were too shocked. Some were from peaceful species that had never witnessed real violence. Others were from warrior cultures and recognized that interfering in a challenge would be dishonorable. And besides, it was all happening so fast. 25 seconds. Velthar made one last attempt to break free. He threw his weight backward, trying to pull Jiwoo off balance, but she had trained in a gravity stronger than this station's artificial gravity. Her legs were powerful, her balance was perfect. She moved with him, maintaining the lock. "Please," Velthar said. The word was quiet, almost a whisper. Jiwoo heard him. Some part of her wanted to stop. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't a monster. But another part of her, the part that had grown up studying her father's military discipline, the part that understood how the galaxy worked, knew that stopping now would be a mistake. She had to finish what the instructor started. She had to make a point that would never be forgotten. 30 seconds. Crack. The sound was sharp and clean, like a tree branch breaking. Velthar's exoskeleton split along the joint line. Underneath, the soft tissue tore. The joint separated, not completely, but enough to cause catastrophic damage. Velthar collapsed. His legs gave out and he fell to the floor, making a high-pitched keening sound that humans couldn't naturally produce. His 3 good arms clutched at the broken one. His whole body shook with pain and shock. Jiwoo released him immediately and stepped back. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled. Blood still stained her face from her broken nose, making her look like something from a nightmare. She looked down at the instructor, then up at the class. 48 students stared back at her with fear, shock, or in a few cases, respect. "You told me to demonstrate, instructor," Jiwoo said. Her voice was calm and quiet. "Should I continue?" The classroom erupted. Students jumped from their seats. Some ran for the door. Others shouted in their native languages. A few pulled out communication devices to call for help. Within seconds, the room was chaos. Tae-young pushed through the crowd and reached Jiwoo's side. "Are you okay?" he asked in Korean. "My nose is broken," Jiwoo replied in the same language. "I meant mentally," Tae-young said. Jiwoo looked at him, then back at Velthar, who was still on the floor. Medical staff were already rushing through the door. "I don't know yet," she admitted. Hana arrived carrying a cloth. She pressed it gently to Jiwoo's face to stop the bleeding. "Security is coming," she warned. "They're going to detain you." "I know," Jiwoo said. "Was it worth it?" Hana asked. Jiwoo watched as the medical team carefully lifted Velthar onto a transport stretcher. His arm hung at an unnatural angle. He was still making that awful keening sound. "Ask me later," Jiwoo said quietly. 2 security officers entered the classroom. They were large and professional. wearing armor and carrying energy weapons. They moved carefully toward Jiwoo as if approaching a dangerous animal. "Jiwoo of Earth," one of them said. "You need to come with us." She nodded and held out her wrists. They placed restraints on her, though she didn't resist. As they led her toward the door, she glanced back once more at the classroom. At the overturned chairs, at the frightened faces, at the blood on the floor, both hers and Velthar's. This was going to change everything. The detention room was small and quiet. Jiwoo sat on a bench with her hands still restrained. A medical drone had scanned her nose and confirmed it was broken, but she had refused treatment until after the hearing. She wanted the council to see what Velthar had done to her. 3 days had passed since the incident. 3 days of questions, scans, and isolation. Jiwoo had been allowed to speak with Hana and Taeyong once, but most of her time was spent alone. She had plenty of time to think about what she had done. The door opened. A tall, elegant figure entered. Ambassador Sujin was the human diplomatic representative to the galactic community. She was in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She had negotiated humanity's entrance into galactic society and was known for her patience and skill. "Jiwoo," she said, sitting down across from the girl. "How are you feeling?" "My nose hurts," Jiwoo replied honestly. "I imagine it does." Sujin studied her face. "Why didn't you let them heal it?" "I want the council to see the truth. He hit me first. He broke my nose without warning or permission. If they see my face healed, they might forget that part." Sujin nodded slowly. "That's strategic thinking. Your father taught you well." She paused. "He's here, you know. He arrived yesterday. We've been preparing for the hearing together." Jiwoo felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Her father was here. That meant she wasn't alone. But it also meant he knew what she had done. "Is he angry?" "No," Sujin said. "He's worried but not angry. He understands why you did what you did." She leaned forward. "Jiwoo, this hearing is going to be difficult. The Quilarian embassy is demanding serious consequences. They want you expelled and charged with assault. They're calling you dangerous." "I am dangerous," Jiwoo said quietly. "All humans are. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight or we died." "True," Sujin agreed. "But the galaxy doesn't understand that yet. They see us as primitives or barbarians. This incident is either going to help them understand us, or it's going to confirm their worst fears." She stood up. "The hearing starts in 1 hour. Be honest, be respectful, and trust that the truth will matter." The hearing room was impressive. It was circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central floor. The Council of Instructors sat in a semicircle, 12 beings from 12 different species. At the highest seat sat Director Zathun, an ancient creature who looked like she was made of living crystal and light. She was hundreds of years old and had seen dozens of species join the galactic community. Jiwoo stood in the center. Her father, Hunwoo, sat in the observer section, his face calm but watchful. Sujin stood beside Jiwoo as her advocate. On the other side of the room, Velthar sat with his arm in a regenerative cast. His lawyer, another Quilarian, stood beside him. Director Zathun spoke. Her voice was like music, but with an authority that demanded attention. "We are here to determine the facts of the incident between Instructor Velthar and student Jiwoo of Earth. Both parties have made serious accusations. We will hear testimony, review evidence, and make a ruling." She looked at Jiwoo. "Student Jiwoo, you are accused of assault against an instructor. How do you respond?" Jiwoo spoke clearly. "I defended myself against an unprovoked attack." Velthar's lawyer stood. "The instructor was providing a demonstration. It was educational, not an attack," Sujin countered. "Educational demonstrations require consent from both participants." "Did Instructor Velthar ask permission before striking Jiwoo?" The lawyer hesitated. The instructor assumed consent was implied by the student's presence in the class. "Assumed consent is not actual consent," Sujin said firmly. "Furthermore, we have medical evidence." She activated a holographic display. Images of Jiwoo's broken nose appeared, detailed and graphic. Instructor Velthar's strike broke the student's nose and caused significant bleeding. "This is not a gentle demonstration, this is violence." One of the council members, a furry creature with large eyes, spoke up. "I must note that such a strike would have killed a member of my species. The force used was extreme." Velthar stood, using his good arms for support. I did not know humans were so durable. I used a standard technique. How was I to know she could withstand it? That's exactly the problem, Su-Jin said. You didn't know. You made assumptions about human physiology without research or preparation. You endangered a student through ignorance, the council murmured. Director Zethun raised one crystalline hand for silence. Let us hear from the student herself. Jiwoo, tell us what happened from your perspective. Jiwoo took a breath. I came to class to learn. Instructor Velthar called me to the front. He said he would demonstrate a non-lethal strike. He didn't ask if I agreed. He didn't warn me. He just hit me. She touched her swollen nose gently. It hurt a lot. But I'm from Earth. Our gravity is stronger than this station's. Our bodies are built tougher. So I didn't fall down. And then, Zethun prompted. He seemed surprised I was still standing. He looked embarrassed in front of the class. I asked if it was my turn to demonstrate. I was angry, but I was also making a point. He agreed. He told me to do my worst. So you broke his arm, Velthar's lawyer said accusingly. I used a joint lock, Jiwoo corrected. It's a control technique. I learned it from my father. It's designed to restrain someone without striking them. I didn't punch him. I didn't kick him. I just held his arm in a way that made it impossible for him to move without hurting himself. But you knew it would break, the lawyer pressed. Jiwoo met his eyes. Yes, I knew. His species has lighter bones than humans. He's built for a lighter gravity world. I knew that if I applied enough pressure, his arm would break. And I made a choice. You chose to injure him, the lawyer said. I chose to end a threat, Jiwoo replied. On Earth, if someone attacks you, you have the right to defend yourself. You have the right to make sure they can't attack you again. That's survival. Hyunwoo, watching from the audience, nodded slightly. His daughter understood the lesson he had taught her. Director Zethun spoke again. Let us hear from other witnesses. Were there other students present? Hana was called forward. She looked nervous but determined. I was there, she said. I saw everything. Instructor Velthar hit Jiwoo without warning. She didn't do anything to provoke him. She was just standing there. Taeyoung was next. I want to add something, he said. People keep talking about how Jiwoo broke the instructor's arm, but they're not talking about context. On Earth, we have hundreds of martial arts. We invented them because we needed them. We fought predators, we fought each other, we fought nature itself. What Jiwoo did, that joint lock, that's actually one of the gentle techniques. She could have struck him. She could have done permanent damage. She chose the technique that would stop him without killing him. She still broke his arm, Velthar said bitterly. You broke her nose first. Taeyoung shot back. And you're a teacher. You should have known better. The council deliberated for hours. Jiwoo waited in the detention room, trying not to think about what would happen if they ruled against her. Would she be sent back to Earth? Would she be charged with a crime? Would this end her education before it truly began? Finally, she was called back to the hearing room. Director Zethun spoke, her voice solemn. We have reached a decision. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, we find that both Instructor Velthar and student Jiwoo share responsibility for this incident. Jiwoo's heart sank. Shared responsibility meant she would be punished. However, Zethun continued, we find that Instructor Velthar bears the greater fault. He initiated violence without consent. He made dangerous assumptions about a student's physiology. He failed in his duty as an educator. She turned her gaze to Jiwoo. Student Jiwoo responded with excessive force but within the context of self-defense. She will be suspended from classes for 1 week and required to attend conflict resolution training. That's all? Velthar's lawyer objected. That is our ruling, Zethun said firmly. She turned to Velthar. You, instructor, will be removed from teaching pending full recovery and mandatory retraining. You will not return to the classroom until you can demonstrate proper understanding of diverse species capabilities. Velthar slumped in his seat, defeated. But Zethun wasn't finished. This incident has revealed a critical gap in our understanding. Humans are classified as Class 9 Deathworlders, but we have not fully appreciated what that means. I am recommending a complete review of human integration protocols. The galaxy must learn that humans are not weak, but they are also not mindless brutes. They are survivors. She looked at Jiwoo one last time. You are dismissed, student. Use your suspension to heal and reflect. When you return, I expect you to help us bridge this gap in understanding. As Ji-woo left the hearing room, her father waited outside. He pulled her into a tight hug. "You did well," he whispered in Korean. "You survived and you taught them something important." "What did I teach them?" Ji-woo asked. "That humans are not to be underestimated," Hyun-woo said, "and that we fight when we must, but we prefer peace when we can." Ji-woo hoped he was right. The news spread fast. Within hours of the hearing's conclusion, every major galactic news network was covering the story. "Human student breaks instructor's arm after nose attack," read one headline. "Deathworlder girl shows true strength," read another. Some portrayed Ji-woo as a victim who defended herself. Others painted her as a dangerous threat who couldn't control her violent instincts. Ji-woo spent her week of suspension in the human dormitory. Her nose had been healed by the medical team, though it still felt tender. She tried to stay away from public areas, but everywhere she went, students stared at her. Some looked afraid. Others looked curious. A few looked impressed. On the third day of her suspension, Hana brought news. "There's a protest happening at the main plaza," she said, sitting on Ji-woo's bed. "About 50 students from low-gravity worlds. They're demanding better protection from dangerous species. They mentioned you by name." Ji-woo closed her eyes. "Great. But there's another group too," Hana continued. "Students from warrior cultures. They're defending you. They say you acted honorably. It's gotten pretty heated out there." "This is exactly what I didn't want," Ji-woo said. "I just wanted to study and go home with a degree. Now I'm some kind of symbol." Tae-young entered the room carrying food. "You're going to need to eat," he said, setting down a tray. And Hana's right. The whole institute is divided. Some species think we're monsters. Others think we're heroes. Either way, everyone's talking about humans now. Over the next few days, Ji-woo noticed changes throughout the institute. New signs appeared in the gyms: standard gravity section and high gravity section. The cafeteria reorganized its seating to give species more space. The administration sent out new guidelines about physical contact between students of different species. On the 5th day, Ji-woo received an unexpected visitor. The door chimed, and when she opened it, she found a reptilian student standing in the hallway. He was about her height with dark green scales and golden eyes. He looked nervous. "My name is Crix," he said in heavily accented galactic standard. "I am from Veros, a Class 7 desert world. May I speak with you?" Ji-woo stepped aside to let him in. Crix moved carefully as if afraid of startling her. He sat down when she gestured to a chair. "I wanted to thank you," Crix said. "Thank me?" Ji-woo was confused. "For what?" "For showing them the truth," Crix replied. "My people are also considered dangerous. Our world is harsh. We have claws and teeth and strong jaws. When we came to the institute, many students were afraid of us. They treated us like we might attack at any moment. We tried to be gentle to prove we were civilized, but they still feared us." "I'm sorry," Ji-woo said. "That must have been difficult." "It was," Crix agreed. "But what you did, what you showed them, is that strength does not equal cruelty. You defended yourself. You stopped when the threat ended. You followed rules even while being attacked. That is not the behavior of a monster. That is the behavior of someone who understands discipline." Ji-woo thought about that. She hadn't considered it from that perspective. "Thank you for telling me." Crix stood to leave, then paused. "There are others like me. Students from hard worlds who understand what you did. We would like to meet with you, if you are willing. We think we could learn from each other." After Crix left, Ji-woo sat in silence. Maybe this incident wasn't entirely bad. Maybe it was opening doors that had been closed before. On her 6th day of suspension, she received a formal message. It was an invitation to a sanctioned duel. A student named Kravik from a species called Saurians was challenging her to combat in the Institute's arena. The message was polite but clear. He believed defeating a human would prove that the incident with Velthar was luck, not skill. Hana read the message over Ji-woo's shoulder. "You don't have to accept this." "Actually," Tae-young said, reading the fine print, "if she refuses, it's considered a forfeit of honor. The rules are specific about formal challenges." Ji-woo stared at the message. Her first instinct was to refuse. She didn't want to fight. She didn't want more attention, but refusing would make humans look weak. It would suggest they could only win through surprise or dirty tactics. "I'll accept," she said finally, "but I get to choose the rule set." Her father arrived that evening. Hyun-woo had stayed on the station after the hearing, wanting to be nearby in case Ji-woo needed him. When she told him about the challenge, he didn't look surprised. "What rules did you choose?" he asked. "Traditional Korean martial arts. Taekyon rules. First to 3 falls or submission." Yunwoo smiled. It was a small smile but full of pride. "Good choice. Taekyon is about more than fighting. It's about control, rhythm, and respect. You're not just accepting a challenge, you're teaching a lesson." "I hope so," Jiwoo said. "I'm tired of being seen as violent. I want to show them we can be strong without being cruel." "That's the hardest lesson to teach," her father said. "But it's the most important one." The week passed quickly. Jiwoo spent her time training in the human gym, reviewing Taekyon movements her father had taught her years ago. The martial art was fluid and dance-like, emphasizing circular motions and using an opponent's force against them. It was beautiful to watch but deadly effective. Hana and Tae-young helped her prepare. Tae-young sparred with her, testing her reactions. Hana researched Saurian physiology, learning about their strengths and weaknesses. Together, they formed a support team. On the 7th day, Jiwoo's suspension ended. She returned to her classes. Students watched her walk through the halls, but the staring felt different now. Some still looked afraid, but others nodded respectfully. In her advanced mathematics class, a small blue alien named Pix asked if she could sit next to Jiwoo. "I'm not afraid of you," Pix said quietly. "I think what you did was brave." "Thank you," Jiwoo replied, surprised by the kindness. At lunch, Crix appeared with 3 other students, all from Class 6 or higher worlds. "We wanted to introduce ourselves properly," Crix said. "This is Dalnim." He gestured to a human male with quiet eyes and a calm demeanor. "He's from Earth, too, from the southern regions." "Busan," Dalnim said, extending his hand. "I heard about what happened. You did well." The other students introduced themselves, a crystalline being from a high-radiation world and a furry creature from a frozen planet. They all shared something in common. They came from harsh environments and they understood survival. "We were thinking," Crix said, "that we could form a study group, share knowledge about our worlds, our techniques, our survival methods. The galaxy thinks we're dangerous, but we know we're just adapted to difficulty." Jiwoo felt something warm in her chest. For the first time since the incident, she didn't feel alone. "I'd like that," she said. That evening, Ambassador Sujin visited the human dormitory. She gathered all 5 human students together. "The duel is in 3 days," she said. "The entire galactic community will be watching. This isn't just about Jiwoo anymore. This is about how humanity is perceived." "No pressure," Tae-young muttered. Sujin smiled slightly. "Actually, yes, pressure. But I believe in you, Jiwoo. Show them what we really are. Not monsters. Not victims. Just humans trying to find our place in a vast galaxy." After everyone left, Jiwoo stood at her window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home. She thought about Seoul, about her old training hall, about the life she had left behind to come here. She had broken an instructor's arm and become famous throughout the galaxy. Now she had to fight again, this time with the whole world watching. But maybe, just maybe, she could use this attention for something good. Maybe she could show the galaxy that humans were complex, capable of both violence and peace, both strength and gentleness. Her father's words echoed in her mind. The strongest person is not the one who never falls, but the one who chooses when to stand and when to kneel. In 3 days, she would step into that arena. But this time, she wouldn't be fighting just to win. She would be fighting to teach. And that, she realized, was far more important. The arena was enormous. Jiwoo stood in the preparation room, wearing a simple white training uniform. Through the wall, she could hear the crowd gathering. Thousands of students and faculty had come to watch. Camera drones floated above the arena, broadcasting to billions across the galaxy. Hana adjusted Jiwoo's uniform one last time. "Remember, you don't have to prove anything to them." "Yes, I do," Jiwoo said quietly. "That's exactly what I have to do." Tae-young checked her hand wraps. "Kravik is big. He's got natural armor and he's from a warrior culture. This won't be easy." "Nothing worth doing is easy," Jiwoo replied. It was something her father always said. Hyunwoo entered the room. He placed both hands on his daughter's shoulders and looked into her eyes. "You know what to do. Trust your training, stay calm. And remember, this fight is not about defeating him. It's about showing them who we are." Jiwoo nodded. She felt surprisingly calm. The nervousness from days ago had faded, replaced by a quiet focus. She had trained for this. More than that, she understood what was at stake. The door opened. An official gestured for her to follow. Jiwoo walked down the corridor toward the arena entrance. With each step, the sound of the crowd grew louder. When she emerged into the light, the noise was overwhelming. The arena floor was circular, about 30 meters across. The walls rose up in tiers filled with spectators. Alien faces of every description looked down at her. Some cheered. Some were silent. A few held signs, both supporting and opposing her. Across the arena, another door opened. Kravik entered. He was impressive. Nearly 2 meters tall, covered in dark red scales that looked like natural armor. His arms were thick with muscle. His eyes were golden and intelligent. He wore traditional Saurian battle gear, minimal clothing that showed off his physical power. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena, speaking in Galactic Standard. Welcome to this sanctioned duel between Kravik of Sars Prime and Jiwoo of Earth. The rules are traditional Korean martial arts, Taekyon style. First to 3 falls or submission wins. Combat will be monitored for safety. Lethal techniques are forbidden. Kravik and Jiwoo approached the center of the arena. An elderly official stood between them, a neutral species known for their fairness in judging. Do you both understand the rules? The official asked. Yes, Kravik said. His voice was deep and confident. Yes, Jiwoo said. Then bow to each other and begin when ready. Jiwoo bowed deeply, showing respect. Kravik hesitated, then returned the bow. It was stiff, formal, but it was there. They stepped back, creating distance between them. The official raised his hand, then dropped it. Begin! The crowd roared. Kravik didn't charge immediately. He was smarter than that. He circled Jiwoo slowly, studying her stance. She stood in a relaxed Taekyon position, weight-balanced, hands open and low, moving with a gentle swaying motion. You're small, Kravik said. This will be quick. Jiwoo didn't respond. Words were just distraction. She focused on his body language, watching how he moved, where his weight shifted, how his tail balanced him. Kravik attacked. He moved fast for his size, closing the distance with surprising speed. He reached out to grab her with both arms. It was a standard technique for his species. Get a grip, use superior strength to dominate. But Jiwoo wasn't there anymore. She flowed around his grab like water around a rock. Taekyon emphasized fluid movement, constant motion. She circled him, forcing him to turn, disrupting his balance. Kravik tried again, this time with a sweeping strike. Jiwoo ducked under it and stepped in close. She hooked her leg behind his and pushed his chest. It wasn't a hard push, but it was perfectly timed. Kravik's weight was already moving forward. Jiwoo's push and leg sweep combined to send him tumbling to the ground. First fall to Jiwoo, the official announced. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Others shouted in disbelief. Kravik got up quickly, his face showing surprise and embarrassment. He had expected to overpower her easily. Again, he growled. They reset. This time Kravik was more careful. He had learned that grabbing wouldn't work. He tried to use his reach advantage, keeping distance, forcing Jiwoo to come to him. But Jiwoo was patient. She continued her rhythmic movement, swaying and stepping in patterns that looked almost like dancing. Kravik watched her feet, trying to predict her moves. That was his mistake. Jiwoo suddenly changed rhythm. She stepped in faster than expected, inside his guard. Before he could react, she executed a throw, using his own forward momentum and her hip as a pivot point. Kravik went down hard, his heavy body hitting the arena floor with a solid thump. Second fall to Jiwoo. Now the crowd was really reacting. Commentators across the galaxy were talking rapidly, analyzing every move. This small human girl was defeating a trained Saurian warrior, and she was doing it without brutality or excessive force. Kravik stood up slowly. His pride was hurt worse than his body. He looked at Jiwoo with new eyes. This wasn't luck. This was skill. You're better than I thought, he admitted. You're strong, Jiwoo replied. But strength isn't everything. They faced each other again. The crowd had gone quieter now, everyone watching intently. Kravik changed his approach entirely. He stopped trying to overpower her and started trying to match her technique. He became more defensive, more careful. They moved around each other for nearly a minute, neither finding an opening. Jiwoo could feel the tension in the arena. People were waiting for the decisive moment. Then something unexpected happened. Jiwoo stopped moving. She stepped back and lowered her hands. The crowd gasped. Was she surrendering? Kravik, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. You're a worthy opponent. You're strong, skilled, and honorable. I don't want to defeat you. I want to show you something. Kravik stared at her, confused. What are you doing? I'm offering respect, Jiwoo said. She bowed again, deeper this time. This fight isn't about proving humans are better than Saurians. It's about proving we can understand each other. I could try for a third fall. But what would that prove? That I can make you fall? Everyone here already knows that. She straightened and extended her hand, the human gesture of friendship. I'd rather make a friend than make an enemy. The arena went completely silent. This was unprecedented. No one stopped a duel at 2 falls. The victory was within reach. Why give it up? Kravik stood frozen, his mind racing. In his culture, showing mercy was often seen as weakness. But as he looked at Jiwoo, at her bruised face from the earlier incident, at her calm expression, at her extended hand, he saw something different. He saw strength of a kind his people rarely considered. Slowly, Kravik reached out and clasped her hand. His large-scaled hand engulfed her smaller human one. You are a strange human, he said. But I think I understand. You fight when you must, but you prefer peace. Yes, Jiwoo said simply. The official looked uncertain. This is unusual. What is your ruling? We both win, Kravik said, his voice carrying across the arena. Or we both lose. I don't care which. This human has taught me something more valuable than victory. The crowd exploded. Some cheered wildly. Others argued about the rules. But gradually the cheering overtook the arguments. People were standing, applauding. Camera drones zoomed in on the 2 fighters standing together, hands clasped. Director Zathun's voice came over the arena speakers. This duel is concluded. I declare it a draw by mutual agreement. Both participants have shown exceptional skill and wisdom. She paused. What we witnessed today is more important than victory. We saw the possibility of understanding across species. We saw that strength combined with restraint is true power. As Jiwoo and Kravik left the arena together, Velthar waited near the exit. His arm was still in its cast, but he could move around now. He stepped forward and Jiwoo tensed slightly. I owe you an apology, Velthar said. His voice was quiet, humble. I was arrogant. I hurt you because I didn't respect your species or your capabilities. You could have responded with hatred. Instead, you responded with discipline. You taught me more in 30 seconds than I taught anyone in 30 cycles. Jiwoo looked at the instructor who had broken her nose. She could hold a grudge. She could remain angry. But what would that accomplish? I accept your apology, she said. And I apologize for breaking your arm. I was angry and scared, and I went too far. You went exactly far enough to stop a threat, Velthar corrected. That is wisdom. He gestured with his good arms. When I return to teaching, would you consider assisting me? I think my students need to learn from someone who truly understands combat, not just theory, but the reality of when to fight and when to make peace. I'd be honored, Jiwoo said. Weeks passed. The Stellar Institute implemented new programs based on what they called the Jiwoo Incident. Human martial arts became an elective course taught by Jiwoo, Taeyoung, and other human students. The classes were popular, filled with aliens who wanted to understand how humans combined philosophy with physical technique. Jiwoo's group of friends from harsh worlds grew. They called themselves the Survivors Circle, students who understood that strength came from overcoming challenges, not from crushing opponents. One evening, Jiwoo stood in the observation deck with her friends, Hana, Taeyoung, Krix, Dalnim, and even Kravik, who had become a regular companion. They watched Earth rise above the planet below. Do you regret it? Hana asked. Everything that happened?